Hey everybody, this is Will and welcome to part 3 of our 5-part series where we're focused on building a worship set of multiple songs in Ableton Live. Now I have linked to all our previous videos and you're definitely going to want to check those out before we get into this video. And we have 2 more videos left to go in this series. And at the end of this series, I'm going to announce something that I've never done publicly that's going to be completely free that you're going to want to make sure you stick around for. And so to make sure you don't miss that, make sure you hit subscribe, enable the bell icon so you see that announcement after I post video 5, because like I mentioned, you're not going to want to miss that. Now, in our previous videos, we talked about using a template for live performance and creating that. And you can actually download that exact template at fromstudiotostage.com/template for free. And then we took that template and formatted all our songs. And again, I've linked to every video showing you how to format songs from MultiTracks, Loop Community, praise charts, free content from live churches, open network, all those sorts of things. Then we started building our set. In our first video, we built our set with multiple songs. This is what it looks like. In our next video, then we talked about creating transitions, adding drone pads. And in this particular video, I want to talk about some advanced tips and tricks that's going to help us take our set to the next level. And then we're just going to continue to build on it from there. So let's dive in and let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about and kind of the advanced tips and tricks we're going to use is we talked about in our previous video when we looked at transitions. I said there were really 4 types of transitions. There was the keep going transition, which we have set up here. We end this song and we just automatically keep going into this song. And then there's 2 transitions in the middle that I want to talk about. The stop transition. And that's a transition where we are at the end of song 1 and we just program Ableton Live to stop. Now the default kind of movement, the default way Ableton Live works is if I click play here, we hear our click going. And then our stems are going to fade out here. And I've got this soloed so that YouTube doesn't yell at me for playing copyrighted content. And then there's a little bit of space, right? And then we automatically jump into our next one. That's what I talked about with the keep going transition. I want to program Ableton Live so that at the end of this song, it stops. Okay. So that's transition type number 2 as it relates to Ableton Live. Transition type number 3 is to stop and select our next song. And setting up these types of transitions start to really open up the door and set up the process so that when we get into next week's content and talk about using this live on stage, that we can really program a set in a way that's really hands off. We can just set up our set so that we can really go on stage and essentially press play and just flow between these. But let's start talking about how we're going to make this happen. The way we're going to do this, the way we're going to start to step from and move from just this kind of basic program set into a more advanced set is use something called a virtual MIDI bus, a virtual MIDI driver. Now, if you're on a Mac, the way to use this is to use something called the IAC driver. It's completely free. It's already installed on your computer. We're going to walk through how to set that up today. If you're on a PC, I suggest using something called Loop BE1. I've got a video that I previously did that I will link in the description of this, where I show you how to set up Loop BE1 on your computer. And the benefit of using a virtual MIDI driver like the IAC driver, Loop BE1, and I should mention after the setup, both of those are the exact same process. So if you're watching this as someone who uses a PC, this is one of those videos where everything I show you is going to be the same after that setup process. So again, watch that Loop BE1 video if you haven't, if you're using a Windows machine, show you how to install it, how to set it up. And again, that's linked in the description. But after we do that, everything else is exactly the same. Now, the benefit of using a virtual MIDI bus is it's completely free. We don't have to use some sort of external software to make this happen. And there's some other softwares that allow you to kind of program an auto stop or whatever by renaming a locator, built into the plugin itself, all those sorts of things. They're great. But this particular solution doesn't require buying anything else. It works in intro, standard, suite, live 11.1 to 10 to whatever. Any version of live you could think of, we have this ability. The way this works is this. If we think of taking a MIDI controller, and let's take, let's grab this one. I got this set up here. If I were to take my PreSonus Atom and I programmed this button here to be stop, then essentially what would happen is I would get to the end of song 1, and I would say, okay, at the end of song 1, I want to stop. So I'd hit it and it would stop live, right? We understand how that happens. I map this to stop in Ableton Live. I think most of us understand that process. When we start to talk about using a virtual MIDI driver or virtual MIDI bus, essentially what we're doing is we're creating a MIDI clip within Ableton Live that we're routing out of Ableton Live to our virtual MIDI bus and then bringing it back into Live. And we're assigning that to the stop button in Live so that we can essentially have a little MIDI clip that's pre-programmed and pre-programmed to stop. Now, I've already done all the work to set this up for you if you download my advanced tracks template or my basic tracks template that's available for purchase or available for free from Studio to Stage subscribers. But it's really easy to set up. So let me show you how to do this to set up, again, the IAC driver on Mac. Check out the Loop BE1 video if you're on a Windows machine. So first thing I'm going to do is go to Spotlight. The way I access this is Command comma. You could also go up and click the Spotlight icon, wherever that is. He disappeared. It's normally up here. I don't know where that is. So just do Command and Spacebar. And this is just a basic Mac thing. So Google it if you need to know how to get the Spotlight. And then we're going to go to Audio MIDI Setup. The first thing I'm going to do is go up to things are kind of getting out of control here with all these windows. First thing I'm going to do is go up to Window, and I want to say Show MIDI Studio. Okay. And then once MIDI Studio is open, I'm going to be looking for IAC driver. So here it is. So I'm going to double click to open this up. What you want to do is you want to make sure that this device is online. So we just click to enable that. Down in the port section here, we only really need one port, one bus. No need to name this unless you really feel strongly and have a desire to do that. And then we hit apply. Okay, so that's as simple as that is. Now on the PC side, again, I know I've said it like 5 times, watch that Loop BE1 video. Now let's head back into Live with our IAC driver set up. We're going to go to our preferences, which is Command comma, Control comma if we're on a PC. And we want to go to the Link Tempo MIDI tab. And when we get to the Link Tempo MIDI tab, there's 2 things we're going to look for. First, on the input side of the IAC driver, or Loop BE1 if you're on a PC, on the input side, we want to make sure we enable remote. Now, I think it's super important here. Don't enable track, don't enable sync. There's some potential reasons why you may want to do that later for other things, whatever. But it's really simple, really easy to set up a MIDI feedback loop to where your computer just starts spiraling out of control. Your CPU spikes and goes super high. So just trust me on this. On the input of your IAC driver or Loop BE1, whatever your virtual MIDI bus is, enable remote only to start with. Now on the output side of this, we're going to go down to output, going to go to IAC driver. We want to only enable track. What that means is we're going to be able to send MIDI from Live's tracks to the IAC driver and then take that MIDI back from the IAC driver to remotely control Ableton Live. Okay. So now with that set up, let's go into Ableton Live. And what I need to do is create a MIDI track. And the easiest way to do that is do Command Shift T or Control Shift T if you're on a PC. That's going to add a new MIDI track. I'm going to rename this. So I'm going to click on the track title bar. I'm going to do Command R. If I'm on a PC, then it's Control R. We're going to rename this and call it Stop. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and create a MIDI clip in this track. And so the way to do this is just to click right here and drag. And I'm going to make this a measure. Then I'm going to do Command Shift M or Control Shift M if I'm on a PC to insert a MIDI clip. I'm just inserting a blank MIDI clip. Now at this point, I need to add a note to my MIDI clip. There's a couple different approaches to this. I'm just going to shoot you straight. I'm going to show you the quickest approach. I do want to mention, I've got some more content that I'll link in the description of this to help you with this. But if you're not going to use a MIDI controller and you don't want your MIDI controller to be able to stop and a stop clip, then you could pick any note you want. If you're using a MIDI controller and you want to use a stop clip, then go ahead and map your MIDI controller to your stop button, figure out what that mapping is, and then make your clip that same mapping. I said that really quickly. Watch the video in the link in the description. In fact, 2 videos where I explain and explain that whole process, show you how to do it, and explain exactly what the heck I'm talking about. For now, this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to create my clip here. I'm going to go scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I'm just going to choose C-2 so that's out of the way. And then this is a will dog it best practice that you don't have to do this. I create my MIDI note. I'm just double clicking to create that. I put my bracket to the right of this, and then I click and drag so that fills the entire MIDI clip. Now, one thing I do want to stress here as I'm doing this, I'm showing you and teaching you how to do this because this is a YouTube video tutorial series. But in real life, I've done this once in my template, and I never have to do this ever again. I've created my MIDI clip, I've saved it in my template, so I'm not redoing my work, and then I'm adding it from my template into my live set. Okay. So I think it's super important. Sometimes, you know, if you're not a From Studio to Stage subscriber, if you haven't done a one-on-one lesson with me, if you haven't sat in person with me at a church where we've done a 2-day on-site, and I've taught your team how to use Ableton Live in the most effective, stable, efficient way, then you may watch this and end up recreating this every single week. Please do not do that. Again, stick around for what I mentioned after video 5, this announcement I have, which is going to help a little bit about with that. So if you're not a From Studio to Stage subscriber, sometimes it's easy to miss that and see these videos and take them out of context. That's why YouTube is not the absolute best way to learn. It's a great way to get started, but not a great way to learn, because a lot of times you miss things like that. So yes, I am creating this right now. I just created this clip, but I ultimately created this one time in my template. I saved it and I saved my work so I don't have to redo it every time. Okay, let's get back to it. So I set up this this clip here, C-2, and now what I'm going to do is go to my tracks. I'm going to hit tab because to me it's a little easier to see this in session view. I could adjust this from arrangement view as well too, but it's just I'm a creature of habit. I'm going to go to the MIDI 2 section, and I want to make sure this is routed to IAC driver. Now, if you're on a PC, this is where you would want to choose loop BE1. If for some odd reason you're using something other than the IAC driver to create your virtual MIDI bus on a Mac or PC, whatever, choose that in that dropdown. Okay. So for me in this scenario, IAC driver bus 1 is what I'm going to choose there. Now we'll press tab to go back over to arrangement view. Let's MIDI map this. So I'm going to go enter Minimap Mode, which is Command M, Control M if I'm on a PC. You can see I already got something mapped to stop. So technically I shouldn't match that because it's mapped to my MIDI controller. But you know, who cares? Life is short. You only live once. So I am going to go just to the left of this MIDI clip here, and I'm going to start Live's playback. And then I'm going to click on this. Okay. And what happens here is by me clicking a little before that, starting playback, it's going to then hit my MIDI clip, and I'm making sure to click on my stop button just sometime before that clip hits. It doesn't have to be exact. I clicked on it before and now it's mapped. So effectively what that means, let's hit Command M, Minimap Mode. And I should mention, I have I think 5-part series all about the IAC driver that I've linked below. So if you feel like I'm going really quickly here, just carve out a couple hours, watch all the content I have linked in the description below, and it's really going to help. But what I've done at this point is now I could take this stop clip here, and let's move it here at the end of my song. Right? And as soon as that MIDI clip hits, it stops in Ableton Live. So what's really nice about this, what I do is I create this in my template. I save it in my template. I typically will rename this stop, and then I make this red just so that when I see it, I know that like red means, okay, red means stop. Green means go. We definitely don't want that. So we're going to make this red. Okay. So then what I could do is copy this clip. And again, if I'm working from my template, then this is going to be in my template, and I'm going to drag it over, and I'm just going to add this to the end of every single one of my songs. Now, another thing, again, this is just a YouTube video kind of taken out of context. I keep all my MIDI mapping and my stop clip stuff at the top here of my set. And then I keep all my stems below there. But then what's really nice about this, so when it comes to transition type 2, we get out of this song and we stop. And that may not seem, you're like, really, Will, this is your advanced tip. This is all you have for us. Don't worry, we're going to get there. We've got some fun stuff coming in the next few videos. But this is a nice thing because I can essentially step on stage. And again, this is our goal. We want to make this as simple as possible for us. I have no interest in, you know, a lot of people will send me a screenshot or show me their Ableton setup, and they'll show me the setup where they've chopped everything up in session. You know, they got this MIDI controller and they've got that. And when they do this, it enables this on a MIDI controller and it does that. And I go, okay, that's great. But the amount of effort and time that they did to make that happen, and then the amount of thought that goes into actually using that on stage, I say, I love what you're trying to do here, but it's way too much work for me. I'm not a smart guy. I need things that are really simple. This is a really simple thing that really helps me on stage when I'm using tracks because of this. If I know that I'm going to come out of song 2 into song 3, and I want it to stop, then why would I not program it to stop? Why would I have to depend on myself? Why would I have to depend on my drummer for, as she's swelling out cymbals, to have to remember to reach over and press spacebar? Make it easy on yourself. Like, don't make your job harder than it needs to be. Create a stop clip here. You get to the end of the song, you play, and it's going to stop. Okay, so that's one of my favorite advanced tips and tricks. And really, as soon as you add the virtual MIDI bus into your set, there's tons of possibilities that open up. But I want to talk about our third type of transition as it pertains to Ableton Live, which is, yes, we've talked about just kind of letting our set roll, and we just kind of keep going from song 1 to song 2. Last week's video, we talked about creating great transitions there and improving that experience. We just talked about setting up a stop clip so that we get to the end of our song and we stop. But I want to take this a step further. Again, scenario of drummer, swelling cymbals. We're trying to save our drummer from having to reach down and press space bar. We've done that with the stop clip. Let's make it even easier so that we can stop our song and automatically select our next song. That's our goal in this process. Okay, so here's what we're going to do for that. We've got our stop clip. We're going to leave that in place. The next thing I'm going to do is add another MIDI track here, Command-Shift-T, Control-Shift-T if we're on a PC. We're going to rename this, what I want to do, we'll call this Select Next Song. Okay. And there's some other benefits to this little trick that we're going to do here that I think could really, really help us. Now, I'm going to go back to song 1. I'm going to create another MIDI clip. Okay, so we're just going to select this amount of space. You know, it's a Will Dog at best practice. We're going to select a measure. We're going to do Command-Shift-M. Or Control-Shift-M if we're on a PC, Command-Shift-M on a Mac. I'm going to pick a MIDI note, anything other than C-2. So I'll go to my next note. I'm going to double click to create it. And then I'm going to put my mouse to the right there, drag it to fill the entire measure. You don't have to do that. I just like seeing it when I look at the clip here to know that it's selected. Then I'm going to right click this and I'm going to do song 2. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into Minimap Mode here again. Oh, actually, we forgot one thing. Let's hit tab. And let's go here, MIDI 2, and we're going to do IAC driver. We'll leave both of these on channel 1. Now, I'm going to go back here. We'll do Command-M for Minimap Mode, and we're going to play this, and then we're going to click on our locator. Oops, I missed it. Let's try it again. Okay, there we go. So now what I did is I MIDI mapped this song 2 clip to locator 2. Okay. Let's go ahead because you're probably picking up on what I'm doing here. We're going to go to the end of song 2 and we're going to create a clip here. It's going to have to be a measure long. Oh, this is kind of tricky. I need a little extra space here. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4 beats. Command-Shift-M. We're going to call this song 3. Okay. Same exact process. Now I'm going to add a little bit of space here because I actually want this, just want to have a little bit of space in my song. I'm going to move this clip over here. We're going to do the same thing we did before, Command-M, and let's zoom out a little bit. There we go. And then actually let me turn off. This is hard to do with follow enabled. So let's disable follow. Okay. Command-M, and then we'll click 3. And that's going to map to song 3. Okay. So effectively what we have now is we have 2 MIDI clips that we've added. In addition to our stop track, we have this song 2 clip, and then we have our song 3 clip. Okay. And what those are mapped to is those are mapped to the actual locator that's at the start of song 2 and the locator that's at the start of song 3. Now, here's what's really cool about that. Well, let me just show you. And then I want to share a warning that typically when I do this video, typically someone will always comment and say, hey, well, instead of mapping to the specific, well, I'm giving you the warning now. I'll just give it to you. Some people will say, hey, well, instead of mapping to the specific locator, you should go and actually map to the next locator button. This process I found does not always work when you use the next locator button, but if you map to a discrete locator, like locator 2, locator 3, then it works 100% of the time. If you map to just next locator, to quote a great movie, then 50% of the time it works every single time. So don't do that. Don't map to next locator, map to the actual locator up here. Now, one thing that's really nice about this that I should mention is when you're doing this, again, you look at this and you go, this is why YouTube is not a great tool for this. You look at this and go, well, I saw Will do song 2, song 3. So I build my set. And then after I build my set every week, I create a song 2, a song 3 clip. No, what I do in my advanced tracks template, and if you want to check that out, I'll link it below so you could see it. Again, you could purchase it. You could become a From Studio Stage subscriber, get it for free. What I do there is I open my template and I create all my locators. I go ahead and take my IAC driver and I map it to all my specific locators. Locator 1 through I think 20 is what's in that particular template, I make those mappings once so that then when I build my set, I can go over to my browser here and I can say, okay, song 3, song 4, song 5, drag that into my set. I do the work once. I never have to do it again. Again, I don't love YouTube all the time for its ability to teach you something really in depth like this. But that's the extra step I would do that I'm not showing in this particular video, but that I think is important to understand. Okay. So a couple more steps we have to do here to make this happen. Let's go to the end of song 1, leading into song 2. We've got our clip here, but let's move this to our stop clip. Okay, let's move it right next to each other. And I'm going to press play on this for a second. Now it's not going to work, but I'm going to explain why it doesn't work in just a second, but let's press play. Okay, so it stopped, but it actually didn't select song 2. And the reason it didn't select song 2 is when both those MIDI clips hit, it's going to take the very first MIDI clip, which is stop. Now, what I tried to do in the past, in previous versions of this, I tried to move song 2 ahead and then, okay, but it skipped stop, right? Like things just kind of went weird. They didn't work the way they're supposed to there. It skipped stop. It just wasn't functioning right. And I get a lot of emails from people that, again, watch a YouTube video and go, it's not working, Will. Just follow this process exactly, become a subscriber so you see it kind of walk through in the tracks through in one course. But if you do it the way I'm showing right here, exactly, it will work 100% of the time. So we've got these clips set up here. The next thing we need to do is something that I've never used this feature for anything other than this. Okay. So if we go to the bottom right-hand side of live screen here to our show hide buttons, we can click this D button, and this is going to show our track delay. And I'm going to give a shout out to Jared Dyke, because the way I used to do this was use Bohm's MIDI translator. It was a super convoluted, really stupid way to do this. And Jared reached out at one point and said, Will, you could actually do the same thing with track delay. So again, attribution is the currency of the internet. So shout out to Jared. Thanks for sharing this tip with me to simplify this process from what I did. He iterated on it and came up with a really cool idea. So again, mad props to Jared for this. But I enabled track delay. And what we're going to do is go to our song 2 clip here, select next song, and we're going to increase our track delay. I found like 50 milliseconds. I think anywhere from like 20 to 50 milliseconds works. We'll do 36 milliseconds there. Okay. As just a starting place here. And let's try it now. Let's see what happens. So what we have is our stop clip. We have our song 2 clip, which automatically selects this song. Both of our tracks are enabled. They're set to the IEC driver, and we've enabled the track delay on our select next song track. So now let's do the same thing we did before here, and let's listen and see what happens. So this time, it may be hard to see, but if you look, it says measure 99 and song 2 is selected. Okay. So let's go to song 3, and then I'll show you practically what this means and why this is such a cool thing. Again, you're like, really, Will, advanced tips and tricks? Like, this doesn't seem awesome. But to quote Steve Jobs, are you getting it, people? Are you getting it? You'll get it. Just a second. If you haven't gotten it yet, you'll get why this is so cool. So same thing for song 2 to song 3 here. We've got this song 3 clip. We've added our track delay. I'm just going to play it. It's going to stop, and it's going to automatically select to song 3. Now, here's the reason this is super cool is I'm not going to touch my computer. Look up here, 198. Okay. You see we're selected for song 3. So what I could do is press spacebar in this case. 1, 2. Song 3 is going to start right immediately. Let's go back to song 2. Let's work this process in reverse. Okay. Stop. And then we automatically go to song 2, and I press spacebar. Here's what's really great about this. This is a reason why I highly suggest, if you're going to use tracks on stage, if you're going to use tracks in a worship setting, you have to use tracks in arrangement view. Do not use tracks in session view. Do not chop up your clips, your audio clips, to try to create all these different sections and then do all this work to do follow actions to get to different clips. Because you're doing all this work to do what we just get for free in arrangement view. You're trying to create a nonlinear thing and make it linear. And in arrangement view, we just automatically play like this. But what's really cool is I can navigate almost my entire set just very easily and quickly like this. So we get to song 1. Actually, we start our set. I double click stop. We start our set, press play. We're playing at the beginning. Our song rolls. We get to the end of this song. We stop. We select song 2. Again, scenario of drummer, all they have to do is just reach over and press play. If they've got a rolling SPD next to them, they just hit play. If they've got a Luftimus at their feet that they can click, I'm not a huge fan of drummers using foot controllers, but whatever, if that's your thing, that's your thing. They press play. They don't think about song 2 play. They just press play. Then this is what they get. Song 2 starts, right? That plays. At the end of song 2, we jump all the way to the end here. At the end of song 2, you understand what's happening. We get to the end here. We stop, select song 3. We could wait as long as we want to. And whenever we're ready to go, we press play on our MIDI controller and song 3 starts. So what's really great about that is we get the ability to navigate and use tracks on stage. Really only all I've used so far as far as the MIDI controller goes is just pressing play. I've really simply navigated my entire set list, my entire song file on Sunday just by pressing play. I'm not having to worry about selecting songs. I'm not having to worry about hitting next song every time. I'm not having to worry about stopping in between each song. I've pre-programmed my stops, and I've pre-programmed the ability to do that third type of transition. Again, like I said, which is how to stop and select our next song. Now, next, I want to show you how we can build upon this to use our MIDI controller to actually navigate our song live on stage. How can we actually take this and use this on stage? What are the moves that we're going to make on stage? And then to extend that, talk about how we can actually live in the moment press one button to repeat any song section and actually create what's called a dynamic guide cue. And that's something that I created and stole the idea from Playback, the MultiTracks playback app, years and years ago when I saw this and I said, I wonder if I can do this in Ableton Live. I want to show you how to do all of that. But in order to see that, you're going to have to join me next week for next week's video for part 4 of our 5-part series. And you'll find the link to that video once it goes live in the description of this video. If you're watching kind of in the future, I hope we're all still here. Hope you're doing well. But if you're watching in the future, then click the link in the description of this video. If you're watching live, it'll go live next week, 10 a.m. Central on Wednesday. That's when that piece of content will release. And again, in that video, I'm going to show you how you can really easily navigate your set list live in the moment and do some really cool things and have a lot of fun using tracks on stage. Again, in a way that's flexible, that's super easy, and it doesn't take a lot of stress, and it's super stable as well too. So to make sure you see that, make sure you hit subscribe to this channel, and then make sure you hit the bell icon. This is super important because even if you subscribe, you don't necessarily get notified when a new video comes out. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the bell icon and turn on notifications so that you see whenever we post a new piece of content. And particularly when you see, make sure you see when we post part 4 and then part 5. And then finally, the big announcement that I keep teasing, that's completely free, that I've never done ever before. You'll see that if you've got those enabled. And then finally, as a reminder, if you want the template that I use to build this exact set completely for free, that's going to give you tons of freedom and flexibility, then head to FromStudio2Stage.com/template to download that. And with that, I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching, 10 a.m. Central. Take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.